Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspections today are Up From The Ashes by Dokken and Wicked Sensation by Lynch Mob. So the reason I decided to put these two albums together is originally on Wikipedia it said that Dokken's album would come out on October the 21st. That seems to have gone to just October. This is of 1990, and Wicked Sensation came out on October 23rd. That's confirmed. So both these albums are 35 years old, possibly within 2 days of each other, certainly this month. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to kind of compare and contrast these, because it's both ex-Dokken members. As people will know, Dokken didn't have a spectacular falling out. The acrimony had built. They had their biggest album Back for the Attack, and then they had a pretty bad tour on the Monsters of Rock tour in America. Quite a notorious signifier of that, of the shifting of the sands. The sort of old school rock bands, the hair bands didn't go down as well, and Metallica stole the show and show where things are going. Read up about it. Some shows are well attended, other ones weren't at all, and Van Halen were on the bill as well. But anyway, I'm digressing there a bit. So they weren't going to continue. They were offered money. I think they were offered $1 million to do the Beast from the East live album, which they did, and that kind of put the end on things, which is quite good in a way. You know, they've done an okay debut with the Breaking the Chains, and they've done like 3 classic LA 80s metal albums in Tooth and Nail and Longer Key, Back for the Attack. I always change which is my favourite of those, and then the Beast from the East album is actually one of the good later live albums released by any band in that era. So at this point, both band members, key band members, have got something to prove. Dokken Lynch teams up with Mick Brown, a singer called Oni Logan, and Anti Esposito to form Lynch Mob. Dokken, I think he wants to call his album Dokken, but he's not allowed to by the band, so he has to revert back to the first just Breaking the Chains European release and call it Dokken, although it does use similar logoing. And he puts together a crack squad: Mickey D on drums, who people know from Motorhead, and King Diamond and the Scorpions. In actual fact, I think this is where Mickey D first broke cover. No, he did King Diamond, and then the great Peter Baltes on bass from Accept, and then the scorching twin guitar attack of the very known quantity of John Norum and the unknown quantity of Billy White. But we'll come to all that. And so both artists break cover within each other. There's similarities with the albums. The Wicked Sensation's got 12 tracks on it. It's 57 minutes long. The Dokken album's 54 minutes long. It's got 11 tracks. It's got similar song lengths. Dokken chooses to produce his own with Wyn Davis Engineering. George Lynch goes with a tried tested Max Norum, one of the great metal producers. Let's get into these. I think the Dokken album breaks cover first. I remember getting this album. I also was a big Dokken fan. It's got the opening track, Crash and Burn. And the first thing that I suppose strikes you when you listen to this is it's got a very European flavour. Dokken, the band, had this mix of European and the American hard rock of Van Halen, really. But this album's a little more European, not just because of the influence of the other band members, who 3 of them are European, Scandinavian, but because Dokken always had that kind of Euro influence. You know, remember he went to Germany first. He tracked backing vocals and stood in for Klaus Meine on the Black Albums while Klaus had his throat operation. So that's the first thing. Really good track, one of the heaviest tracks on the album. Nice staccato riffing, and a stunning solo that I think is by Billy White. I always thought these solos were all trade-offs, and a little criticism of the solos. Sometimes it's difficult to spot the differences in the guitar sounds because they're very similar. But this is definitely Billy White, and the guy really throws down a marker with this. He does this really cool stretch on a solo, and then it really builds it. It's a lovely run at the end. He almost picks up speed. He's got great chops, tone, vibrato. He hits all the spots, and he's the main co-writer on the album as well. I think before this, Billy White was in a band called Watchtower. After this, he just disappeared. You can find him online doing kind of more flamenco stuff, I think, acoustic-based stuff. But obviously when this album came out, it's in that difficult period of 1990. I suspect maybe John Norum came in later to the process in this. Norum gets less solos, surprisingly, even though he's a bigger name, and less co-writes. He's got 1, 2, 3 co-writes on this. So anyway, then you've got 1,000 Miles Away. This is co-written by John Norum. This is again very melodic. Got a nice whoa, 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 sort of clean verses. A lot more sort of hard rock AOR. On this one, again, really nice solo. It does a Billy White, Norum trade-off, a really nice harmony on it. Great track. Then the next two tracks, When Some Nights and Forever, I would say are sort of slightly weaker, but they are good. Again, with these tracks, you've got that heavy use of sort of clean guitar, which has got the Dokken, part of the Dokken DNA. And then When Some Nights is Dokken Norum White writing is 427 for us 516. Billy White does another great song, When Some Nights You're Lonely, and John Norum does a great song, Forever, and you can tell it's Norum. He does some sort of classic Norum licks. Then you got Living a Lie. This used to be my least favourite track on the album, but it has got a really good riff. It's got a really good riff using sort of minor and major thirds, very European. It's co-written by Norum. I think it's, now on the solo I've got Billy White Norum here, but I'm not sure. Again, sort of just more straight ahead melodic rock. One thing that's interesting on this album, it's not as riff heavy. You've got to hand it to George Lynch. He's a master riff writer. Oh, sorry, my notifications. He's a master riff writer, and he's got distinctive style. His tritone type riffs and so on. With this, it tends to be more sort of block power chord rhythms with the odd kind of bit. Kind of like the more kind of riff like about like Rainbow might do, or of course Europe. But Living Lies is another good track, and then there's the big power ballad When Love Finds a Fool. This is current with Glenn Hughes. It's 534. I think this is really good, and it's got a great solo by Billy White. Very emotional, good use of whammy slurring. You can hear he's probably improvised it. It's got that one take vibe, and that was the finish of the original side one. What's interesting about this album, it actually gets better on side two. I would say side one's got 2 or 3 excellent tracks and good sort of solid tracks. The second side opens up with Give It Up, which is just a really good rocker. Really good. Great work from Billy White on this again. The same with Mirror Mirror. This is co-written with a guy called Mark Spiro as well. Really good chorus on this. Again, ripping solo from Billy White and John Norum. John Norum has his wah on this. Some great fat vibrato. Then you got my favourite track on the album, I think, or one of my favourites, along with Crash and Burn, it's Stay. I think when you listen to the riff at the start of this, it kind of explains the rhythm style. It goes da 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 da. So it's the riff's more playing. It's got a little fiddly bit, but it's just playing block power chords and inversions, but in a certain kind of rhythm. So it's not intricate riffing, and I think it shows the production style of the album as well. The guitars are quite sort of a little scratchy. Quite a lot of mid, but they're kind of set on top, but the bass is quite fat. You can really hear Peter Bolters' bass, and he's a great bass. He's got that great kind of clank, but he's got that warmness. Mickey D's drums are kind of tight. Yeah, it's got the big reverb on at the time, but it's not over the top, and then Dokken's voice just sits in there. I think Don's kept it very simple on this album. He's basically gone bass, drums, guitar left and right, with some enhanced clean tracks in there, lead breaks, vocals, harmony vocals. Really good. Imagine John Norum just backing vocals on here, so there's Peter Boltzer, and that helps as well. So Stay's a great track. Billy White does a phenomenal solo on this. It starts off with a cool harmony, and then he does a run later on where he picks up speed through the run and builds up. If you watch there's a promo video for this. Really good. Then you got Down in Flames. This is really good as well. It's got a great staccato of F-sharp riff. It opens with a really kind of effective kind of nuclear kind of laboratory warning kind of sound, and then it's saying relax, everything is fine. It's quite creepy. Then it just comes in with an intro of a blistering solo from White. Then it comes in with the riffing, the drums, harmony solo. Really good, Don. Great chorus, brilliant solo. John Norum's great, and I think he might do a solo at the end, I'm not sure. Very good. And then finally you've got The Hunger. I didn't used to like this track when I was younger. And it's not the best track on the album, but the album benefits from it. It's the classic up-tempo Dokken end of album track, Light Till Living End. It's got a great drum intro by Mickey D with great fill. Heavy riffing, F-sharp I think, breaks down for the verses, really catchy chorus, and of course a ripping trade-off solo. I think like Norum bests White on this. It's quite interesting. I would say White is the star of this show. I think it's interesting in this era, Norum he's getting his chops more together. He's built his chops up more. But actually, Norum gets better as a player on his next 2 solo albums, in my opinion. And on this album, he's fucking great. But White is just got to measure him a bit. But Norum absolutely fucking tears it on this. And he does his classic sort of Gary Moore inspired run at the end of his solo. So that's the end of the album. If I was picking the sound of this compared to original Dokken, and I was thinking about this the other day, I would say tracks like Into the Fire, maybe Just Got Lucky, Will the Sunrise, those lighter elements are more prevalent in this. It's not as chunky, but you have got your fast rockers like Crash and Burn and The Hunger. But it's definitely more on the melodic hard rock end of the spectrum rather than melodic hard rock metal. But I think it's a really good record. There's not a bad track on it. I think the songs are great, the hooks are great. I'd easily give it an 8.5 out of 10, 9 out of 10. So how does it compare to the Lynch Mob or the Wicked Sensation? I think this had more of a buzz. It had a very striking cover. You got to remember George Lynch is a really big guitar hero. He's by the end of the 80s, after Malmsteen, Halen, Vice, Satriani, I would say Lynch, he's the next kind of guy in the queue before Nuno comes out and things like that. And he got the front cover of Guitar World for this, and it was a big thing with his Skull and Crossbones guitar and so on. First thing you notice with this album, the opening track, is production's really good. You got tight guitars, you got a great drum sound. I listened to the Rock Candy remaster of this on a good system before doing this, and it's such a good sounding record, and Max Norman does a great job. I know some people, one of my mates, kind of criticises the volume of the solos. I would say sometimes the solos do need to come up a dB. They just seem to... I always felt the back of these guitar solos are too loud. They sit on top too much and they almost hurt your ears sometimes. With this, and certainly the second Lynch Mob album, it feels like sometimes they need to come up a notch or they just need a frequency tweak. But anyway, the title track's a good track, as is the next track, River of Love. Not my favourite tracks on the album, but very good. Quite interested in this album. Lynch contributes lyrics. Obviously, he's writing all the riffing. He's heavily involved in this. Solo on Wicked Sensation is solid. As an opening solo, it's not as good as the Crash and Burn solo. And I said the same for River of Love. I'd say that's one of George's weaker solos. He's kind of got an oscillating wah, Hendrix type gizmo on it, sort of like what he puts on now. Nothing wrong with the solo, but it doesn't stand out as a great Lynch solo. But the third track, Sweet Sister Mercy, I think sort of shows quite a bit of the difference. I mean, Wicked Sensation's got a really slinky groove, and that's something that Dokken didn't do. And Sweet Sister Mercy is the same, but it's even slinkier. I think if you're looking for a Dokken comparison track, you would have a track like Sleepless Nights, where it's got a swinging beat. Sweet Sister Mercy's got a great guitar solo. It's got a great fill where he kind of does this bluesy lick and catches a harmonic. I have a feeling they certainly played this track live when I saw them supporting Queen's Rock on the Empire tour. Fourth track is one of the standout cuts on the album. This is All I Want. Again, it's got that slinky groove. It's got a kind of 12/8. It really kicks back on the beat. Again, it shows off Mick Brown's skill on the Dokken. You could accuse Dokken of having ploddy 4/4 sometimes. I'm lacking his swing and groove on this. The solo on this is phenomenal. George, it's absolutely one of his best solos. He does some amazing stuff on this. He has some pinch harmonics that are just absolutely in there. Only Logan's great on this record. The problem was live. He didn't have a lot of charisma. He seemed shy. And I know there's criticism he didn't warm up properly, but he does a great job. And some of the vocals on this album, I think it's on Sweet Sister Mercy, could be on another track, are flown in from original demos digitally. So this is really early use of bringing in digital technology, flying the vocals in and then transforming them into what would be recorded on reel for real. Superb job by Max Norman. They got Hellchild. This is another really cool one, again, with a great solo. And then side one finished with She's Evil But She's Mine. Another great track with phenomenal soloing from George. He's a great outro solo using the Mixolydian mode. I think it goes up a key at the end and Logan shows off his range. So that track's 5:09. So all the tracks are, are kind of, apart from Sweet Sister Mercy, over 4 minutes to 5. This is in an era when songs and albums are getting longer. So side two albums with Dance of the Dogs. I didn't used to like this track. It's not the best track on the album, but it is really good. It's got a really cool groove on it. Again, this track grooves like a bastard, and George does a really cool kind of bouncing kind of solo, but he's got this kind of weird mix on it later on. If you remember the George Lynch in the REH instructional videos in the studio blowing over this track, you see him cutting this break. He's got like a kind of wood maple top ESP. Fantastic. Weird that all four members getting on the lyrics on this, which is interesting. Then you've got Rain. Again, this is a track I didn't used to like as much, but I do think it's good. It's got some really nice, clean, I think he used a Telecaster, clean bluesy licks from George. It's probably the weakest track on the album, but again, it shows the strength of the album that it is a good track. It's 4 minutes 52. Then you got No Better Roses. Again, this is another track I didn't used to originally like, but it's got a nice pop feel to it. Quite an interesting sort of riff in D where he's kind of clashing two notes, open E with the B string, and it's quite interesting. Very catchy chorus. Then Through These Eyes. Again, this was a track I used to think, it's a bit, I'm not into this, but it's actually really epic. I think this is the track on my most recent listen was like I'll give this a prize for most improved track in actual fact. Credit to the band. He builds a really big chorus and there's a big whoa. George's solo is quite epic, and it's at that tempo where it really swings. There's some on this album, the tempos are very good. They've obviously dialed in the tempo, so every groove and everything's really good. And I imagine Max Enormous had a part to play with that as 515. Then you've got the other kind of standout epic track on the album, To Go With All I Want, with the standout Lynch solo of this album, and it's For a Million Years. Really good, utilising the Mixolydian flat 6 mode that George is beloved, both in the solo and some of the riffing. It's in the sort of D minor, D Mixolydian flat 6 tonality. Great, it just breaks down to a really lovely groove, clean, and George just loves a sort of nice feedback and subtle stuff, and then it's kind of like all his ideas start to converge, and then he goes to this epic harmony. It's fucking ripping. But there is a bit where he's playing some quick stuff, it is mixed down a bit, and I think that's something that started to creep in to George's soloing around this time. Certainly if you listen to a track like on the Lynch Mob self-titled album, the second album, that Jungle of Love solo, it's very mixed down. Then you got Street Fighting Man. This is a cool track. It's got a kind of Mr. Scary kind of F-sharp riff. Lynch does his gothic octave run, that's what he called it, his instructional video. It uses the Locrian type shape. For those who are familiar with that, that's 4:48. So again, you can see there's only 2 tracks under 4 minutes on this album, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 over 5 minutes. So I got the Up From the Ashes album, it's longer arrangements. So what I think of this album, I think when it came out, it was kind of like, it was 8 tracks I really loved, but I wasn't that keen on River of Love, Dance to the Dogs, Rain, or No Better Roses, or Through These Eyes, or maybe I did like Dance to the Dogs. So it was kind of always a 7 out of 10 for me, and then over time it's crept up, and I think it is a really great record. I think the tracks, I don't think there's a bad track on it. I think it's like the Dokken album, it's easily an 8.5 from 9. I'm kind of inching towards a 9 on both these albums, and it's hard for me to pick which is the best. Sometimes I feel the Don album's kind of more right. It's just got really good songwriting on it, and Billy White and John Norum absolutely give a fucking 100%. They absolutely give. John Norum gives absolutely the best he can at the time. Billy White plays out of skin. George on this album is absolutely fantastic, but I still prefer the more structured. Although he technically developed, I still think Under Lock and Key with its very structured solos, the perfect George Lynch thing. You've got Only Logan's voice is more of a natural kind of bluesy rock singer, like the Steven Tyler vibe, which is what George wanted. He always was critical of Don Dokken's voice, and Don Dokken's, he's not got a massive amount of power, but what makes him stand out is that melody, it's that melodious tone. I would say with Don Dokken, he's not in the top echelon of great hard rock metal singers, or AOR singers. He's not up there with Steve Perry or Lou Gramm or Rob Halford or Klaus Meine or Dio, but he's the next best thing. If I was in a band and I was looking for a singer and Don Dokken turned up, I would be very happy. Interestingly, neither Don Dokken or Only Logan were great frontman. I've seen Dokken live on several occasions, and Don, to me, he's a good live singer, but he just didn't have the charisma. When you're looking at your classic sort of from Bruce Dickinson, Steven Tyler, you know, they've got a way of working the audience, or Dio, that powerful kind of way of standing and holding the audience. It's like he didn't know what kind of front man to be, and then Only Logan, I think, was probably just a bit kind of out of his depth. You know, if you've not had much time playing bars, or maybe you've not done many big shows, it must be difficult going on in front of a sold out Queensryche crowd at City Hall, which is where I saw them. Terrible sound for that gig, and then George's strap fell off in the Mr. Scary one, which some people might remember. If he were there, who saw it. Yeah, you know, so they've both got that problem, but I think Only Logan's a kind of more natural singer. He's more what you'd expect from this kind of music. So there's that. Drums wise, well, Mickey D, Mick Brown, I think you'd have to say Mickey D's superior drummer if you look at his career, but Mick Brown's a very underrated drummer. Bass, you know, Anthony Espinal does a good job, but he's Peter Boltz, you know, Boltz is a really valuable member to any band. So it's a tricky one. I can't really pick between them, but I feel very lucky that in the space of what I think is a few days, I've got these two albums. I still listen to them now, and they've got better. Particularly Wicked Sensation, I think always Up From The Ashes, I was always 100% on board with that. Wicked Sensation I was mostly on board with, but I've got more on board with it. It's nice to appreciate those other elements with it. So this is a first, and never before I've done, instead of doing, you know, a single classic album inspection, I think it's been interesting to pull these together. The final thing I'd say is both albums made just inside the top 50 in America, but neither of them went gold. Of course, Dokken did achieve platinum status with their albums. Again, it's at that time they were stronger together. I would suspect the Dysfunctional album probably sold more copies than these albums. That sold 450,000. So, you know, although they could work together, they were strong together. But the other point is, it's in that changing thing where the glam metal, the LA metal thing had its time, was beginning to have its time, and these albums would find it harder to find an audience. But if you've not heard them before, check them out. Check out the second Lynch Mob album. And the Dokken album, it sits comfortably alongside all the Dokken albums before and the Dokken that came after. It's excellent. All right, remember to share and subscribe, and I'll see you again, but not for much longer. Cheers. Thank you.